My benefactor used to call me the singular white lily of Hollywood. I never competed or plotted, I was docile, understanding, and utterly devoted to him. Recently, however, he's become enamored with a flashy, attention-seeking Rose. He transferred the 2 brand deals and film role he'd promised me to his latest obsession. Everyone in the industry expected me to be humiliated. Instead, I breathed a deep sigh of relief. At last, I had justification to switch benefactors. My next patron had been growing restless for months. Chapter 1. My assistant was sobbing over the phone while I sat in the stylist's chair, preparing for that evening's charity gala. Emma's voice trembled as she delivered the news. The brand says Mr. Harrison insisted, the gown goes to Stella. Stella was Harrison's newest infatuation, and she'd coveted the haute couture dress Ellie had loaned me for the season. Harrison was besotted with her, naturally granting her every whim. He told me, Stella's attending her first major event. She needs to make an impression. It's only a dress, Vivian. Show some grace. He understood perfectly well that a director I deeply admired would attend tonight. I'd spent an entire month preparing to impress him. Harrison simply didn't care. Perhaps my performance had been too convincing over the years. He believed I loved him desperately, that I couldn't survive without him, so he acted without restraint. He'd grown accustomed to my understanding nature and endless compromises. The possibility of my embarrassment never entered his mind, or that I might face ridicule. I immediately instructed my agent to contact every luxury brand. She sent mass inquiries to over 15 houses, but none could provide a gown. Within our circles, whispers spread rapidly that my dress had been stolen mere hours before the event. People approached with feigned concern. Vivian, if it's too late, there's nothing to be done. Other opportunities will come. It's such a shame that director Chen is tonight's featured guest. I heard he's casting the lead for his upcoming film. After a moment's consideration, I called Adrian's number. Under the watchful eyes of those pitying or gleeful, I waited patiently for 3 hours. Just when I considered leaving, Adrian's assistant arrived with a gown. It was a previous season's haute couture piece from Ellie, regrettably, not quite my aesthetic. That evening, Stella wore the gradient sapphire starlight gown adorned with 1,000 diamonds and commanded everyone's attention. Before the gala concluded, press releases with the hashtag #LivingPeony celebrating her devastating, beauty-flooded social media. Emma was outraged. Vivian, you would have been stunning in that dress. Shortly after, those words reached Stella's ears. She approached me holding a champagne flute, her eyebrow arched provocatively. I heard you wanted my dress too. But Mr. Harrison said only someone young and fresh like me could embody the ethereal starlight aesthetic. She deliberately appraised me from head to toe. Vivian, you'll be 30 in 2 years, won't you? Women must accept aging gracefully. I smiled serenely. 28 isn't young in entertainment, that's accurate. I simply hope dear Stella never reaches my age. Stella froze, clearly struggling to comprehend my meaning. I'd already offered a courteous nod and retreated backstage. By the time she processed it and texted me with obscenities, I'd returned to my apartment, removed my makeup, and was preparing to shower. After reading her message, I made a small sound of disapproval. Harrison's new darling was beautiful, certainly. Unfortunate she possessed so little intelligence. Chapter 2. I was blow-drying my hair after showering when Emma's messages arrived in rapid succession. She informed me that a brand endorsement we'd already secured had been stolen by Stella. Additionally, for the series I was scheduled to join tomorrow, Stella had been inserted into the cast. They claimed she was the second female lead, but her scenes equaled mine. To be fair, Harrison was a competent benefactor. When infatuated with someone, he'd deliver the finest opportunities without hesitation. I'd experienced that treatment myself. Otherwise, I couldn't have ascended from complete obscurity to top-tier stardom in merely 5 years. However, his affection was fleeting. I'd witnessed plenty of people genuinely fall for him, none ended well. Once, someone tearfully asked me, Vivian, teach me, How do you tolerate the endless parade of women around him? I silently handed her a tissue. Probably because I never expected his genuine love in the first place. Chapter 3. I learned at a very young age, true love is the most unreliable thing in the world. My mother was deceived by something she called true love. She spent her life as someone's mistress yet firmly believed she was his great romance. She constantly told me that one day my biological father would arrive in a Maybach to take her away, that he would acknowledge us as part of his family. When I was little, I believed her. I waited wholeheartedly for my father to come collect me. Until the day my mother took me to kneel before my aunt to beg for school tuition. Until the day I didn't dare buy sanitary products to save money and had to steal the thin paper liners from the school restroom. Until the day someone accidentally knocked over the small cake the school gave us for Children's Day and I broke down crying. That's when I understood, true love can't fill your stomach, and it can't keep you alive. True love is a joke. But I never told Harrison that. What I told him was that I had given him my whole heart. That because I loved him, I never asked for anything, never made things difficult for him. That because I loved him, I was willing to endure all the other women flitting around him as long as I could stay by his side. That wasn't exactly a lie. I loved Harrison's money, loved his connections. I loved the starlit path he laid before me, the one that let me soar straight to the top. How could that not be love? Harrison took great pleasure in being adored by me with such single-minded devotion. I actually found him a little pitiful. If he had ever truly loved someone, or been truly loved by someone, he would have instantly seen that my passionate affection was an act. Because when you truly love someone, how could you ever endure a third person in the picture? Maybe it was because my acting was just that good. Over the years, people came and went in his life, yet he never replaced me. But now I'm ready to replace him. Chapter 4. A year ago, I had already realized that what Harrison could offer me was becoming very limited. I was already a top-tier starlet. There were plenty of resources I could secure without his help, and even some that he couldn't obtain for himself. But I didn't dump him right away. First, although he couldn't bring me much positive benefit anymore, it would be all too easy for him to sabotage me, and I couldn't afford to make him an enemy. Second, as the devoted little white flower who was madly in love with her benefactor, I was supposed to wait until he grew tired of me and paid me off, not be the one to initiate the breakup. Otherwise, I'd look too calculating, and what benefactor would dare take me in afterward? Third, I was still waiting for Harrison to get bored and give me a generous breakup settlement. So I waited for Harrison to give me a solid reason to walk away. But for the past year, he seemed to have settled down with no new women at his side. So when I heard he'd given the 2 endorsements and a movie he had promised me to Stella, I let out a long breath. At last, I had my chance to replace him. Chapter 5. I had a beautiful night's sleep and went to the set early the next morning. Halfway through the opening ceremony, Stella finally arrived in her usual leisurely fashion. Harrison was the biggest investor in the series. As his new favorite, Stella naturally enjoyed the highest tier treatment, her own luxury van from a 5-star hotel plus a personal scriptwriter. Several unreasonable added scenes for her were approved by the director without a single objection. Seeing the director's attitude, I naturally kept my distance from Stella. But Stella couldn't resist coming to provoke me. By the 3rd time she used the excuse of filming to push me into the pond, I grabbed her arm and pulled her in with me. Unfortunately, Stella was terrible in the water. While I only ended up with ruined makeup, she genuinely gulped down several mouthfuls of that greenish pond water. As luck would have it, Harrison came to visit the set. Stella looked pitifully aggrieved, tears falling non-stop. Harrison scooped her up in his arms, gave me a half-smile that wasn't a smile, and said, "Looks like you've grown a temper." I stood in the pond with my head lowered, face pale, looking as pitiful as possible. Harrison said, "Apologize to Stella and I'll let this go." I answered softly, "I did nothing wrong." Harrison, embarrassed in front of everyone, lost his patience. "Then stay in the pond. When you've figured it out, you can come out." With that, he left with his entourage. Of course, I wasn't going to just stand there like an idiot. I waited until the paparazzi had taken enough shots, then fainted on the spot. Emma rushed over, shouting for people to help send me back to the hotel. By the time I had showered, Emma had already sent out the press release. Young Master Harrison defends new flame, old flame turns soaked mess. Chapter 6. I had barely finished blow-drying my hair when my mother called. She asked, "What's going on with you? You've been with Mr. Harrison for 5 years, how can you still lose to that little vixen?" I rubbed my temples. "Stay out of it." She grew anxious. "If I don't take care of you, who will? I told you long ago, you need to hurry up and give Mr. Harrison a son so the rest of your life will be secure." I gave a cold laugh. "And you gave that man a son, but in the end, you still have to rely on me to support you, don't you?" She snapped bitterly, "Baby, I'm saying this for your own good, how can you talk to me like that? If you don't take advantage of your youth and beauty to find a man, what will you do when you're old?" A sudden heaviness settled over me. All my hard work in acting, all my relentless effort, in her eyes, none of it mattered as much as simply finding a man. She had relied on her looks to gain a few conveniences from men, and so she worshipped them as gods. In the first half of her life, she scraped by on the money a man left behind, raising me and my younger brother with difficulty. In the second half, she hoped I'd find a man to keep supporting our family. She had been a parasitic vine her whole life, and she wanted me to become one too. She didn't encourage me to strive upward, she encouraged me to take the easy, slippery slope. She said if I just let myself slide, I'd end up in a paradise of bliss. But in reality, it's nothing but a mirage. So I will never let myself slide. Chapter 7. My rise to where I am today was of course helped by the resources Harrison gave me. But it was also because I was diligent, clever, and relentless. That's how I became famous so quickly. Unfortunately, others don't see it that way. Like my mother, they all think I owe it all to Harrison. Which means that if this relationship ever goes south, I have to make sure I'm the most innocent one, the perfect victim. Only then can I win the full sympathy of public opinion instead of being torn apart by it. Our battlefield has never been a small film set, it's on the keyboards of the masses. But Stella and Harrison seem not to understand that. Stella is even gloating over her so-called victory. After that incident, she strutted around the set every day like a victorious rooster, bossing people around. Harrison and I, meanwhile, entered our first real Cold War. A few days later, Harrison got drunk. His friend called me to pick him up. I simply forwarded the call to Stella. Harrison was so furious that he spat out a warning that same night, "Vivian, I'll be waiting for you to beg me." All these years, I had played the role of the love-struck simp so well, even his friends would say, "Harrison really has charm." Vivian is usually so aloof, so many rich young men try to please her and she doesn't even glance their way. Who knew she's actually Harrison's little simp in private? So the moment I let my mask slip, Harrison couldn't handle it. If he were smart, he'd realize, when an employee stops caring about the boss's moods, it usually means they're getting ready to jump ship. Chapter 8. After things ended on a sour note with Harrison, he doubled down on promoting Stella, even making a high-profile visit to the set to show his support for her. He was forcing me to bow my head. And of course, I would. Only, this would be the last time. I called Harrison, but he hung up immediately. Fortunately, patience is something I have in abundance. I sent him WeChat messages one by one, my tone earnest and humble. "Harrison, don't be angry. Every day we've been in this Cold War, I've cried myself to sleep. My birthday's coming up. Could you come have a bowl of longevity noodles with me?" I'd looked into Harrison's past before. His mother died young and his father barely cared for him. He'd been spoiled into uselessness by his stepmother. The only warmth he'd ever known from family came from his late mother. She was from Suzhou and every year on his birthday, she'd make him a bowl of longevity noodles. So on the first birthday we spent together, he'd asked me what I wanted. I told him I wanted a bowl of longevity noodles. I told him I'd grown up with my grandmother, that she was from Suzhou and made me a bowl of longevity noodles every year on my birthday. I was certain Harrison wouldn't go digging into where my grandmother, dead for over a decade, had actually been from. Sure enough, he had only reddened his eyes and pulled me into his arms. All right. Every year from now on, I'll have longevity noodles with you. So although it took him a long time to reply with, "We'll see," I knew he would come. Chapter 9. On my birthday, the sun was blazing. Stella picked a fight with me again over some trivial matter. This time, I didn't back down. I gave a cold laugh and leaned in to whisper so only the two of us could hear, "Don't think you're anything without Harrison backing you up. Do you know he's coming to set today to celebrate my birthday? Miss Stella, you'd better watch that temper, you're about to fall out of favor." She didn't believe me and called Harrison right in front of me. I'm flying over to visit tonight," Harrison replied, a touch of impatience in his voice. Maybe it was his tone, but Stella suddenly looked uneasy. She threw me a hateful glare and stalked off. I almost told her she should work on her idioms. Chapter 10. Harrison booked a private room and invited the crew to celebrate my birthday. But just before it was time to cut the cake, he disappeared from my side. I glanced at the location tracker on my phone and understood immediately. Half a year ago, when I'd first thought about cutting ties with him, I'd installed a tracking app on his phone. It could be activated from mine, but only once, self-destructing afterwards so he'd never know. I excused myself from the table and followed the signal. It didn't take long to find Harrison and Stella in a stairwell. As expected, the infuriated Stella couldn't wait to offer her body to him. The sound of their lips and teeth tangling echoed in the empty space. I took a deep breath, steadying my hands as they trembled with excitement. I slipped my phone through the crack in the door and hit record. They kissed for a while. Then Stella was spun around, pressed against the wall, her gown bunched up around her waist. "Harrison, isn't it thrilling to do this with me just one wall away from Vivian?" Stella suddenly glanced back, perfect timing for me to get her full face in HD. "You've already ruined her birthday and still have the nerve to ask that?" Harrison teased. "Tell me, am I better, or is she better? Shut up and focus." Harrison, be gentle," Stella whined. "Who was it that insisted on dragging me in here? You can deal with the pain." A sharp smack landed on her backside. His voice came out hoarse. When Harrison finished, I checked the video length. 6 minutes. TSK, short. I pocketed my phone. Time for my entrance. Chapter 11. When I pushed open the stairwell door, they were still wrapped around each other kissing. Both of them froze for a moment when they saw me. Then Stella gave me a provocative little smile. "Sorry, Vivian, for ruining your birthday party." Harrison, on the other hand, quickly straightened his clothes, not that he'd taken much off in the first place, and asked as if nothing had happened, "What are you doing here? Have you cut the cake yet?" My whole body was trembling. I couldn't speak. Tears rolled down my cheeks in big, heavy drops. Seeing how pitiful I looked, Harrison gestured for Stella to leave first. Stella shot me a resentful glare, then picked her panties up off the floor. As she left, she cooed to Harrison, "Harrison, I'll be waiting for you in 8:02. And then tossed a snide comment my way, "It's not like you're Harrison's girlfriend, stop acting like the official wife." When Stella was gone, Harrison came over, reaching out to hold me. All right, stop crying. Haven't had the cake yet, right? I'll go back with you to eat it." I pushed him away. The lingering scent of Stella's perfume and the traces of their recent intimacy clung to him. It was disgusting. He tried to pull me into his arms again. I shoved him away sharply. Before he could get angry, I struck first. Choking back sobs, I said, "Harrison, how could you treat me like this?" Harrison rubbed his temples. "Vivian, you're the one who said that as long as you could stay by my side, you'd put up with anything. You got along fine with the other women before, didn't you?" I clutched my chest and cried, the reason I could get along with the others wasn't because I could endure more. It was because I loved you more than they did. But how could you trample all over my heart just because you knew how much I cared for you? Maybe it was because I looked so pitiful, but Harrison's tone softened. Vivian, I really just wanted to celebrate your birthday tonight, it's just that. How about I take you to buy a bag later, I kept crying. Come on, don't cry. I won't do it again next time. There won't be a next time, I said quietly. What did you say? Harrison raised an eyebrow. I said, Harrison, let's break up. It was rare for Harrison to lower himself, but I didn't let him off the hook. His eyes cooled, his voice dropping. Take back what you just said and I'll pretend I never heard it. I stayed silent, tears falling as I shook my head with stubborn resolve. Harrison's face darkened instantly. He gave a short, cold laugh. Vivian, think this through. I never go back to my exes. Once it's over with me, it's over. There's no medicine for regret. I gave a bleak little smile and launched into the lines I had so carefully prepared. Harrison, you probably don't remember. Our first meeting wasn't at that Gießen dinner party, it was even earlier, at an award ceremony. That night it poured. You gave me an umbrella and from then on, there was no room in my heart for anyone else. I remembered it clearly, he'd been dressed casually, but the umbrella he handed me was a swain. I'd memorized him on the spot. When we first got together, I thought, as long as I could stay by your side, that would be enough. But over the years, people have come and gone around you, and you never replaced me. You even took me to your birthday gathering with your friends last year, introducing me as your girlfriend. You said it so seriously. I believed you. I thought if I stayed long enough, one day you'd turn around and realize how good I was. But just now I finally understood, it was all my foolish wishful thinking. My love means nothing to you. Harrison, I won't ask for it anymore. Thank you for what you've done for me in the past. I wish you all the best in the future. My eyes were red, my voice hoarse as I finished the speech. I almost wanted to applaud myself. This was the highlight of my acting career. Even I almost believed it. Without giving Harrison the chance to speak, I turned and ran off in tears. I was afraid if I stayed any longer, I'd burst out laughing. Maybe it was just my imagination, but out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw Harrison's eyes turn red. Chapter 12. Oh, I forgot to mention, that day I'd left my microphone on. Which meant the entire conversation between me, Harrison, and Stella was broadcast straight to the crew. Somehow, the recording ended up online. My image as a heartbroken yet resilient little white flower won the public sympathy. The hashtag heartache for Vivian shot straight to the top of the trending list. Right behind it were hashtag pure love warrior Vivian, hashtag the only pure white lily in showbiz, hashtag new flame versus old love. The falling into the water incident Stella's company had previously buried also resurfaced. Anonymous netizens began spilling details. I work on the crew and all I can say is Harrison young master must be blind. Lily is 1,000 times better than you know who. That day she fell into the water, the way she looked at Harrison's back, I felt my heart break. I can't believe there's still a pure love warrior like her in this industry. I'm crying. Old fan here, Vivian's cold and aloof to everyone, but the tenderness in her eyes whenever Harrison is mentioned is impossible to fake. When people said she was only with him for resources, I swore she truly loved him. Exactly. You can't hide it when you love someone. If her relationship with Harrison is fake, then the world owes Vivian an Oscar. Years later, will Harrison regret it, when he realizes no one will ever love him like White Sis did? Y'all are here crying over love, but let me praise her professionalism. On the day she fell in the water and fainted, the director asked if she needed a day off and she wiped her tears and said, I can't delay everyone's schedule because of her. Do you know how much that made us nobodies tear up? And as for you-know-who, setting aside the diva behavior, she's unprofessional. Makes our workload heavier. Can confirm. Her acting is terrible, she's always making mistakes. Any day she's on set, we're guaranteed overtime. Her face is frozen from all the plastic surgery. How could her acting be good? And she still has the nerve to brand herself as the passionate peony, stepping on white cis for clout. Public opinion was almost entirely in my favor. And me? At that moment, I was holding a glass of wine on the 57th floor of Marina Bay Sands in Singapore, crying at the glittering CBD skyline. If the director had approved more than 3 days off, I would have flown to Paris to cry, to London to cry, to New York to cry. But Singapore was my pick, not only because I was craving kaya toast, but also because I'd noticed Adrian's location was here. Chapter 13. Adrian is my next target. A year ago, while scouting for a new benefactor, I enrolled in a top business school's EMBA program. Adrian, a distinguished alumnus, came to give us a guest lecture on equity investment. I didn't absorb a single word of the content. All my attention was caught by the first slide of his presentation, his personal profile. Even as an outsider, the investment projects he'd led were names I'd heard countless times. When I looked up his net worth, the string of zeros that popped up made me count them several times, and still lose track. I glanced down at the zeros on my phone screen, then looked back up at Adrian on stage. Suddenly, my face felt hot, my heart pounding like a trapped deer. After all, pure little white flowers like me fall in love at first sight so very easily. I used a question after class as an excuse to add him on WeChat along with everyone else. Then, using the naming style of his WeChat account, I tracked down all his social media profiles and related articles. Soon I'd located his Twitter account, his investment forum account, and a Weibo alt I was almost certain was his. It took me 3 days to read every interview and article about him, and another 3 days to go through every post on all his social accounts. Later, I learned there's a term for this. It's called due diligence. I think I was born for due diligence. I'd already gathered every scrap of public information I could find. Now it was just a matter of how to use it. Chapter 14. When Adrian came back to our school to give another lecture, he left time for questions. I calmly raised a question I had been preparing for 2 months. It was about the famous acquisition deal that had made his name. I pointed out that the acquisition actually had significant loopholes and risks. Men are like this: if you keep flattering them, they won't remember you. But if you point out a flaw, they'll instantly want to debate you. Sure enough, his gaze settled on me with real focus for the first time. My makeup and styling that day had also been carefully planned, all aimed at projecting the image of an intelligent, cultured woman. I've always been good at creating my own unique competitive edge through differentiation. With Harrison, for example, the women who truly loved him weren't as beautiful as me. The ones more beautiful than me didn't love him as much as I did. Those who were both beautiful and in love with him weren't as obedient as I was. Now with Adrian, I aimed to be the most beautiful among the cultured and the most cultured among the beautiful. Adrian seemed intrigued and began discussing the issue with me. I had rehearsed my talking points countless times, well-reasoned but never aggressive. I wrapped it up with, of course, I'm sure Mr. Adrian must have considered the most extreme scenarios and the cost of failure. That's why I admire the boldness it took for you to burn the ships behind you back then. Such courage made this legend possible. Adrian smiled. 2 days later, when we ran into each other again in the VIP airport lounge, he greeted me by name. Opportunities always favor the prepared. That day, the flight happened to be delayed. Using the excuse that my newly done nails were too long to tear open a tea bag, I asked Adrian to do it for me. We started chatting. From tea we drifted to travel, from travel to art, from art to philosophy. Every topic that interested him was one I had already researched, so our conversation flowed effortlessly. At the end, Adrian said, I didn't expect an actress to have such a broad knowledge base. I smiled modestly. A good actor always crams knowledge about a character's profession before taking on a role. I clearly saw a flicker of admiration in his eyes. When we boarded, he took the initiative to carry my suitcase. He said, next time, don't be so formal. I'm a few years ahead of you, calling me senior is fine. Who would have thought? The girl who once couldn't even get into a top-tier university, now calling a Harvard graduate senior with a straight face. But that wasn't enough. I needed a chance to close the distance between us. So the night my gown was stolen, he was the first person I thought of to ask for help. It was both a show of vulnerability and a test. If he was interested in me, he would definitely come through. Fortunately, I bet right. After the charity gala ended, I called Adrian. "Thanks for helping me out tonight, senior." Adrian chuckled on the other end. "So how are you going to thank me?" The corner of my lips curled. "Naturally, with my body." That low note in his voice traveled through the line, making my heart skip. I steadied my tone and said, "A friend of mine is about to open a steakhouse. He's hired a Michelin 3-star team. When it opens, I'll treat you to beef, senior." Adrian laughed softly. "All right. I'll wait until I'm back in the country." Chapter 15. Of course, I wasn't going to foolishly sit around waiting for him. The next day, I joined a new crew. Then by provoking Stella, I ended my relationship with Harrison. The director gave me 3 days off, and I had originally planned to fly to Hainan for a couple of days of sunbathing. But when I saw Adrian's location in Singapore, I immediately decided to try my luck there. I hadn't expected that I'd actually run into him. I spent 2 days on the rooftop of Marina Bay Sands, letting the wind wash over me before finally seeing Adrian. When I first met Adrian, I'd openly told him I had a boyfriend. The goal was to lower his guard so he wouldn't think I was deliberately approaching him. Now that my breakup had become public knowledge, it was the perfect chance to milk a little sympathy. If a man starts to feel sorry for a woman, the distance to falling for her isn't far. When Adrian arrived, there was already a small pile of beer bottles next to me. I still had one in my hand. The November evening breeze wasn't cold, but when Adrian took off his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders, I didn't refuse. That kind of indirect skin-to-skin contact is a tacit intimacy between a man and a woman. I saw him pause for a moment before I spoke. "Oh, senior, what are you doing here?" Adrian smiled. "I heard there's a beauty who's been standing here in the wind for 2 days, so I came to check." I turned my head away, showing him my better side profile. "Don't make fun of me, senior." Adrian asked, "Broke up with your boyfriend?" I tilted my head back and took a couple of swigs, then smiled faintly. "Yeah. Guess I made a fool of myself in front of you." When I lifted the bottle again, Adrian pressed down on my hand. "If you don't feel like smiling, you don't have to." I froze for a moment, then obediently let my eyes redden. Tears started falling one by one in front of Adrian. He opened his arms. "Come here, my shoulder's yours to lean on." I leaned against his chest with restraint, silently shedding tears, trembling as I cried. 10 minutes later, Adrian sighed softly into my ear. "Don't cry anymore. You're breaking my heart." I looked up at him through tear-blurred eyes. Adrian studied my foolish expression and suddenly let out a quiet laugh. "For someone usually so sharp, how can you be so slow right now? Junior, Harrison is nothing but a spoiled heir living off his family's fortune. He's not worth so many of your tears. You deserve better." Adrian's gaze carried the confidence and certainty of someone in control. I stepped back, not daring to meet his eyes. "Thank you for your comfort, senior. I'll get going." A pure, flawless white flower like me, of course, wouldn't shatter my persona by jumping into something new right away. Chapter 16. On the morning of the 3rd day, I flew back to China. Adrian had probably never met a woman who would leave without saying goodbye. The moment I landed, I got his WeChat message, "Back in the country?" Me, hum. Even after a good cry, I still have to come back and keep grinding. I had no intention of moving things along too quickly with Adrian. There was no shortage of women eager to warm his bed. I had no interest in becoming one of them. I hadn't spent all this time laying the groundwork just to move from Harrison's hothouse straight into Adrian's back garden. A few years ago, I attended a gathering with Harrison. I saw with my own eyes a director I admired fawning over an investor. And I also saw a senior actress, one who had won multiple Best Actress awards internationally, being pressured to drink over and over again. That was when I suddenly understood, even if I reached the very top of the industry through my own hard work, in the eyes of capital, I would still be nothing more than a plaything. So this time, in getting close to Adrian, my ambitions were bigger. If I could leverage that little spark of feeling he had for me, I wanted to see if I could pry open something far more valuable. Emma came to pick me up at the airport. I had just gotten into the car when she couldn't wait to start reporting the past 3 days of public opinion. Stella had initially tried to defend herself, claiming that when she and Mr. Harrison started dating, both parties were single. But Mr. Harrison slapped her down directly in an interview. I raised an eyebrow, signaling her to go on. Emma, a little smug, continued, Mr. Harrison told reporters that he'd just had a bit of a disagreement with his girlfriend recently, so he asked everyone to give me some space. If people kept digging, he might not be able to win his girlfriend back. The public opinion exploded. It was solid proof, Stella was the homewrecker. Now the mainstream conversation has two camps. One is hoping sister stays gloriously single and never looks back. The other is shipping the Harrison and sister pairing, waiting for the CEO chasing his wife to the ends of the earth drama. I nodded and pressed further. I want to know my popularity index on all the major charts, my fan growth numbers, and whether there have been any new business offers in the past few days. All at the top. The series you starred in before have also seen a sharp rise in viewership. As for new business, a few brands have made some initial contact. By the time Emma finished her report, we had arrived at the filming set. The crew greeted me with sympathetic eyes. A round-faced makeup artist even came over just to tell me, hang in there. With a weary face, I thanked everyone and threw myself back into work. The day after I returned, Harrison showed up. Of course, he didn't come empty-handed. He brought along a Van Cleef & Arpels Ponte Amour watch. I remember you once said you really liked this piece. I placed the order with the sales associate 6 months ago and it just arrived, Harrison said with a smile. Every time Harrison came back to me from another woman, he would bring a gift. This time, the Ponte Amour had a retail price in the 7 figures, not counting the premium from required purchases. When I was 17 or 18, reading romance novels, I never understood why the heroine would refuse diamond rings or jewelry offered by the hero. Now I suddenly understood, when you can afford them yourself, you realize there are things far more important than diamonds and jewels. 3 years ago, with nowhere left to turn, I had been forced to bow my head before Harrison and willingly become a flower in his hothouse. For the past 3 years, I had worked myself to the bone, moving seamlessly from one project to the next. It was all for this moment, the moment I could stand tall before Harrison and refuse to let him put a price tag on me again. Mr. Harrison, no merit, no reward, I replied coolly. Just as I turned to leave, Harrison grabbed my arm. Vivian, this time it's my fault. I've already broken up with Stella. All her scenes in this series will be cut, you're still the female lead. Actually, He rubbed the bridge of his nose as if trying to decide how to phrase it. I cut him off. Mr. Harrison, your personal affairs don't concern me. If there's nothing else, I'll be going. I walked away quickly. With so many eyes on us, Harrison couldn't keep pulling me back. So instead, he called my mother. Chapter 17. On the day filming wrapped, my mother came to the set. I hadn't seen her in 3 years. The moment she saw me, she grabbed my arm. You're coming with me right now to apologize to Mr. Harrison. Suppressing the stares from the people around us, I led her back to the car. As soon as we got in, I shook her hand off. Are you out of your mind? Harrison cheated first, what would I be apologizing for? She clutched her chest in frustration. It was just a fling. Can't you put up with it? I let out a cold laugh. I've put up with it for 5 years. Isn't that long enough? She paused, then said, well, after all, you only have what you have today because of Mr. Harrison. What I have today, I earned myself. Yes, Harrison gave me resources, but I still had to be good enough to make use of them. Besides, he's a major shareholder in the company. Half of what I earn ends up in his pocket. He's not losing anything. My mother muttered, but you've been with him for 5 years. You really don't have any feelings for him? I suddenly couldn't hold back. I slammed the thermos in my hand down, my voice low and hard. Feelings? Do you not remember why I got with him in the first place? When I was 22, my mother used the money I'd borrowed from online loan platforms, supposedly for her surgery, to fill the gambling hole my younger brother had dug. She cried and told me, "What else can I do? The whole family is counting on your brother." I broke down and shouted at her, "Counting on him for what? To squander everything we have?" She tried to hug me. "Sweetheart, I know I've wronged you. Don't worry about me. I won't treat this illness. I won't become your burden." She said it lightly, but there was no way I could actually abandon her. I knew the entertainment industry was the fastest place to make money, so I plunged in head first. But I underestimated its cruelty. At one dinner, when I nearly couldn't protect myself, Harrison appeared out of nowhere. He said he could arrange for my mother to see the best thoracic surgeon and have the malignant tumor in her lung removed. He said he could place my gambling-addicted brother in his company under someone's supervision. I asked, "And the price?" He smiled pleasantly. "No price at all. I just really like you." At that time, with my mother's illness, the debt collectors, and a predatory agency all pressing down on me, I was utterly cornered. I had no choice but to accept Harrison's gift. At first, Harrison was genuinely good to me. So much so that I started to believe the illusion that we were in love. He would always say to me, "Vivian, with me around, you don't have to work so hard." Sometimes I wavered. Right, with Harrison there, why was I freezing in the water until my body went numb, hanging in a harness until I couldn't straighten my back? Why couldn't I just take it easy, try leaning on him for once? Before I could figure it out, another woman appeared at Harrison's side. When I confronted him, he brushed it off with, "Just a bit of fun." It hit me like a bucket of ice water. I had always despised how my mother depended on others, yet I had almost repeated her mistake, walking down the same path she had. From that moment on, I constantly reminded myself, never dream of relying on anyone else. I had to hold my fate in my own hands. From then on, I cut off all feelings for Harrison, treating him solely as a stepping stone to change my destiny. In the end, my mother backed down. Because I told her, "If you try to persuade me again, I'll cancel your credit card. If you don't believe me, go ahead and see if Harrison will give you money to use." You see, I still can't fully control my own fate, but I can already control hers. Chapter 18. After sending my mother away, I threw myself into new work. But it was as if the goddess of fate had suddenly taken a liking to me. A luxury brand I'd never been able to close before skipped the evaluation period entirely and gave me an endorsement deal for their makeup line. Several top magazines invited me to shoot their covers, allowing me to sweep the fashion grand slam. Even a prestigious drama production team I'd never dared dream of working with extended me an olive branch. Opportunities were falling into my lap one after another. Even Emma noticed something was off. She said, "Mr. Harrison is really sparing no expense to win Vivian back." I neither confirmed nor denied it. I didn't think Harrison had that kind of pull. Not until I ran into Adrian at the Phoenix Awards. I had won Best Actress and Adrian was my award presenter. After the ceremony, Adrian came to find me. "Does winning the award make you at least a little happier?" I realized instantly, these resources had all been Adrian's doing. Half joking, half serious, I asked, "If I said no, would Senior think I was ungrateful?" Adrian took a step closer, leaning toward me with a trace of dominance. "Then why don't you just tell me what you want?" I lowered my gaze, took a step back, putting distance between us. "Senior, what do you want, handing me money and resources like this? Trying to test my price?" Adrian clearly hadn't expected me to speak so bluntly. I drew in a breath and lifted my eyes to meet his. "Senior, I know what you want. But I'm tired of this kind of relationship. I don't want to continue like this anymore. Adrian's expression turned serious. What kind of relationship do you want, then? I looked directly into his eyes. I want to be your partner, not your kept woman. Senior, I know you're about to establish a new entertainment investment fund. I want a spot as a founding partner. I'll contribute capital and take equity. Adrian was silent for a long moment before finally saying, "Do you know what you're asking for?" "I know exactly what I'm asking for," I replied calmly. "I have 20 million in liquid assets that I can invest immediately. I've also been in contact with 3 other investors who are willing to follow my lead. Together, we can provide 100 million in initial capital. Senior, you're not losing anything in this deal. You're gaining a partner who understands the entertainment industry from the inside." Adrian studied me for a long while, then suddenly laughed. "I underestimated you, Vivian. I thought you were just a clever actress. I didn't expect you to have such ambition." "Senior," I said softly, "if I didn't have ambition, I would have stayed Harrison's little white flower forever. The reason I left him wasn't because I couldn't tolerate his infidelity, it was because the ceiling of what he could offer me was too low." Adrian's eyes gleamed with approval. "All right. I'll give you this opportunity. But I have conditions." "Please, go ahead." "First, you'll start with 5% equity. If the fund performs well in 3 years, I'll increase it to 10%. Second, you'll serve as the fund's entertainment industry consultant, responsible for project evaluation and talent scouting. Third," he paused deliberately, "we maintain a professional relationship. No personal entanglements." I extended my hand. "Deal." Adrian grasped my hand, shaking it firmly. "I look forward to our cooperation, partner Vivian." The moment our hands clasped, I felt as if I'd finally grasped my own destiny. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's girlfriend, someone's mistress, or someone's plaything. I was a partner, an equal. Later that night, I stood on my apartment balcony, overlooking the glittering cityscape. My phone buzzed with a message from Harrison. "Vivian, I've arranged for your mother's surgery. Come back to me." I read the message, then blocked his number without hesitation. I'd already told him, there's no medicine for regret. Emma knocked on my door, carrying a stack of contracts. "Vivian, these are the investment proposals Adrian sent over. He wants your evaluation by next week." I took the documents, feeling their weight in my hands. This weight was different from the luxury bags and jewelry Harrison used to give me. This was the weight of responsibility, of power, of my future. "Emma," I said, "clear my schedule for the next 3 days. I need to study these thoroughly." Emma nodded, then asked hesitantly, "Vivian, are you sure about this? Becoming an investor is completely different from being an actress." I smiled. "I know. That's exactly why I'm doing it. Acting is a career with an expiration date, especially for women. But capital? Capital has no expiration date." Over the following months, I poured myself into my new role. I evaluated scripts, met with directors, and scouted emerging talent. My first investment recommendation, a low-budget film by an unknown director, became a surprise box office hit, earning 20 times its initial investment. Adrian's respect for my judgment grew with each successful project. 1 year later, I stood at the inauguration ceremony for our fund's new headquarters. Adrian gave a speech acknowledging each partner's contribution, and when he mentioned my name, the applause was genuine and warm. After the ceremony, I visited my mother. Her surgery had been successful, paid for with my own money, not Harrison's. She looked healthier than I'd seen her in years. "I heard you're a big-shot investor now," she said, a hint of pride in her voice. "I'm working toward it," I replied. "But Mom, I didn't do this by finding a man. I did it by betting on myself." She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Maybe I was wrong. Maybe there are things more reliable than men after all." I squeezed her hand. "There are. Like your own abilities. Like your own choices. As I left her apartment, my phone rang. It was a blocked number, but I answered anyway. Vivian. Harrison's voice sounded tired. I heard about your new venture. Congratulations. Thank you. There was a long pause. Then, was any of it real? Did you ever love me, even a little? I thought about lying, about giving him the comfort of believing our years together had meant something. But I'd spent too long living a lie. Harrison, I loved what you could give me. And I'm grateful for it, it got me where I needed to go. But no, I never loved you the way you wanted to be loved. Another pause. At least you're honest now. At least now I can afford to be. I ended the call and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, Harrison was probably nursing his wounded pride. Stella was probably scheming her way into someone else's good graces. And my mother was probably still praying to the altar of male approval. But I was free. Free from pretending, free from performing, free from waiting for a man to hand me my destiny. I had earned my own white lily crown. And this time, no one could take it away. The end.